And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy.
I don't know what I said.
Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad John from CBC News and Terra Dynasty Productions, and I'll be telling you how Islamophobia is affecting modern Muslim youth. We reach this time of era where technology becomes part of our lives. Although its original intention is to serve people in a positive way, many people find a loophole to deceive, lie, rob, and spread fake news. Many of us hated these aspects, but it's just reality. We often see this in the media. With the rise of Islamophobia after the attack of 9/11 and various other terrorist attacks deployed in the name of Islam, many Muslims are affected by the hate both physically and mentally, especially the youth. After the presidential election in 2016 resulting in the winner President Donald Trump, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia skyrocketed with many people targeting Jews and Muslims. The FBI found both groups to suffer an increased hate crime in 2016. Muslim and Jewish people make up less than 3% of the US population, with an estimated 3.3 million Muslims and 5.7 million Jews. As a result, many young Muslims become more liberal and most likely to hide their religious identity. According to One Path Network, 1 in 3 Muslim children between the age of 5 to 9 didn't want to tell others they are Muslims. 1 in 2 didn't know whether they could be both Muslim and American, and 1 in 6 sometimes pretended not to be Muslims. You may hide your religious identity only if you are in danger, according to chapter 16 verse 106 of the Quran al-Karim. Anyone who after accepting faith in Allah utters unbelief, except under compulsion, his heart remaining firm in faith, but such as open their breast to unbelief, on them is wrath from Allah, and theirs will be a dreadful penalty. Muslim youths tend to differentiate the Muslimness based on religious symbols and religiosity. The hijab, for example, is seen through many spectrums between the extremes, such as the symbol of oppression, liberal, or simply just religious. By the way, women aren't forced to wear the hijab. It was commanded by Allah as seen in Surah Al-Ahzab verse 59. O Prophet, say to your wives, your daughters, and the women of the believers that they should let down upon themselves their jalabib, which the meaning of jilbab. Muslim youths are also very exhausted from needing to prove their Muslimness to Muslims and their Westernness to their friends. This often led to youth having to choose one over another, which led to social isolation and abandoning Islamic values. Personal experience may play the role in this. People's relationship to God is like their relationship to people. They can feel distant from or traumatized if we are hurt those closest to them. A bad experience in the mosque or an abusive parent can and does serve as a reinforcement of Islamophobic messages. Young Muslim women in particular face the greatest pressure in society, yet feel the less accommodated in the mosque they attend. The two main and major Islamophobic messages are Islam's oppression towards women. While women have prioritized pushing back the association with violence over since 9/11, the issue of gender injustice has become a bigger priority. It is in fact forbidden as quoted in Quran Surah Al-Baqarah, and for women are rights over men to similar of men over women. The Quran, in addressing the believers, often uses the expression believing men and women to emphasize the equality of men and women in regard to their respective duties, rights, virtues, and merit. It says for Muslim men and women, for believing men and women, for devout men and women, for true men and women, for men and women who are patient and constant, for men and women who humble themselves, for men and women who give in charity, for men and women who fast, for men and women who guard their chastity, and for men and women who engage much in Allah's praise. For them has Allah prepared forgiveness and great reward. While many young Muslims do not believe that Islam is inherently violent, a large number do associate Islam with the oppression of women, but that's a cultural thing. The media. The media is a great source to get news outside of our reach. It is, however, misused, and now all of the media are heavily biased due to their views. They constantly tell their side of the stories of the Paris attack and the migrant crisis in 2015. News like CNN and Fox are a great example of how they corrupt the youth's mind. Here is a clip from CNN's Sugarcoating Islam.
Well, law enforcement people tell us otherwise. 40% of terrorist attacks that were foiled were actually aided by Muslims who were very concerned about extremism. And I have to tell you that, first of all, extremism is the enemy of us all. Islam is not the enemy. Extremism is the enemy. And so we need to work with Muslim communities directly so that Muslim communities can be engaged, not to alienate the Muslim community.
While Fox, on the other hand, is the opposite.
Immigration, allowing them to come in carte blanche to European countries in the 60s to allow them to work. They stayed. Their kids are becoming radicalized. We are at risk of the same thing.
Although this may be useful for some viewers, this, however, frightened the Muslim youth as they're the one who frequently listens to the news as they're afraid of being attacked by an audience who have never met a Muslim and is anti-Semitic. This also applies to social media such as Facebook and Snapchat. Stereotypes are a big issue toward Muslims as shown by a previous video here. Stereotypes such as hating the LGBT are a misconception by non-Muslims who never met a Muslim themselves and are based on the surface of a Quranic verse and an authorized hadith. They take the verse such as At-Tawbah ayah 5, but when the forbidden months are past, then fight and slay the pagans wherever you find them, and seize them, beleaguer them, and lie in wait for them in every stratagem. But if they repent and establish regular prayers and practice regular charity, then open the way for them, for Allah is forgiving, most merciful. Thinking that Muslims were commanded to kill all the non-believers when in reality and deeper, as according to Sheikh Yusuf Ali, was a war against the mushriks after they violated the peace treaty of Muslims and the pagans. The youth in fact are very tired of being called a terrorist. Just go meet a Muslim and you'll see why. Maybe after that you can judge them. I'm not gonna lie, according to National Public Radio, 300 or so Muslims in America joined ISIS since 2011. That's 1 in every 10,000 Muslims, but that's our mistake and we'll need to prevent it, inshallah. The main root of Islamophobia is the biased news of people who never met a Muslim. Doesn't matter if they're sugarcoating Islam or not. Muslim extremists not only target non-Muslims but also Muslims. In fact, more Muslims are being killed by ISIS than non-Muslims, since the attack are taking places in Muslim majority country. According to a report by the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, in cases in which religious affiliation of terrorism casualties can be determined, Muslims suffered between 82 and 97% of fatalities over the past 5 years, and Muslims are 7 times more likely than non-Muslims to be the victim of terror. However, between 2001 and 2015, 75% of the fatality from the terrorist attacks occurred in Muslim majority countries. Almost all of the attacks, 98%, occurred outside the US and Western Europe, despite these dominating the news cycle. The BBC reports that between 2004 and 2013, there were 400 terrorist attacks on UK soil, mostly non-lethal. In the same time frame, the US suffered 131 attacks and fewer than 20 were lethal. During the same time span in Iraq, there were 12,000 attacks and 3/4 of them were deadly. Then the most crucial thing to me is how the media focuses more Western than the stuff in the Middle East. Wallahu a'lamu bis-sawab. Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.